Okay, so how many had seen that video before? All right, maybe a couple. So how many liked it? Give me your thumbs up. How many would say it was okay? Other one would like go back to the drawing board? Anybody? Okay, again, just something that supplements all the various videos we have. Sort of like, again, with the cradle to grave one I showed you yesterday, there's over 100 of them. We spent federal highways probably a good $4 or $5 million to put all those together a few years ago. So I'd really encourage you, when and if you get the chance, at your discretion, take the time to review them. Again, they're quick hitters, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so this afternoon we'll get into these various topics and get a little more detail. But before we go that far, before you left yesterday, I asked you to try to remember something. You remember what that was? Or go home and tell your significant other and or family and friends. If you want to put it in the contracts. Everybody remember that? Okay, so this leads right into quality. Do we want quality in the project? Okay, so hopefully this module will give you some ideas on how to potentially put quality into your project. First of all, trying to lead off with quality assurance. How many have ever heard of the three-legged stool? As far as quality, okay, 3 major components. It's QC stands for quality control. The A part of it is for the state or the transportation agency acceptance, and then the third is independent assurance. So what's the difference between independent assurance and the acceptance? Any particular? We'll get more into it, but I'm just trying to see if anybody's got some thoughts at this point. Yeah, the idea between each leg is that there's somewhat of a firewall, right? To avoid collusion, avoid misuse of the testing, and we'll actually talk a little bit later on contractors' tests being used for acceptance tests. So keep that in mind when we're talking about quality if you want to put it into the contract. So with the present, as far as quality control, just to let you know, is the three-legged stool thing I mentioned. It's to me, why I'm big on that is everybody hopefully is over the years dealing with federal aid projects is aware of our 23 CFR 637 sampling and testing criteria. Everybody heard of that, hopefully, somewhere in your career? Not that many either, okay? Occasionally. But also tied to that same philosophy process that can also roll over into quality assurance related to design management, and it can also roll into construction quality management, and we'll get into that with this presentation. Okay, so first part of the presentation will be related to the terminology for QA and the responsibilities associated with it, as far as what are the requirements that you're actually putting into the contract. And then we'll get into the design QA as far as quality control, which is the contractor's quality control versus the state's acceptance. Okay, with implementation issues, different things within federal highways, and actually working with AASHTO and TRB, Transportation Research Board, we've had different issues that we've seen over the years. The first one is lack of awareness of current quality assurance terminology. How many people would say they know what quality assurance is or feel comfortable with what you're currently doing? Okay, a few of you. Another one is a misunderstanding of the design builder and agency roles. Have you guys had any of those issues yet that you've identified? Okay, silence does not mean consensus. Okay, third one, we're unclear of QA provisions in design build RFPs and contracts, which is a perfect time for this kind of discussion for this audience we have. Okay, so we'll get into the terminology and responsibilities. So, who is responsible for quality assurance? Who would you say? Everybody, design builder, consultant. Okay, so things to keep in mind, we sort of walk through this. Just sort of ask yourself, because you'll see it sort of similar slides, just try to get the thought process out there for you to consider. Okay, so you'll get answers to that in future slides. So who is responsible for quality control? Still tying back to the three-legged stool, all three requirements apply. It's just a matter of who's doing it. As we go around the United States, there's quite a bit of differences depending on where you're at. But remember again, at Design Build, the requirements, CFR, 23 CFR, as far as materials requirements, still apply to the federal aid contract, assuming you're using federal aid funds. So that's why it's important to try to understand you may be using the same terms, but you also need to help validate that the correct staff resources are involved in that particular aspect of the project. So as far as quality control, just like the slide you guys just saw, okay, moving through, so who's responsible for acceptance? Who? Speak up. Owner, okay. So again, these slides are just to try to get that you out there thinking as far as who do you think needs to be responsible for it. Then who's responsible for IA? Anybody in particular? Contractor? The state? Both of them? Well, again, it depends what your definition and criteria for design build is. Again, that's one reason why we try to make this sort of a focused discussion, because as we've gone around, different states are doing, trying to follow the intent, but some states are a little bit on the questionable side to how they're actually implementing it. Okay, so with that, going back to quality assurance, as you can see, it got a National Quality Improvement Task Report. Even though it's a few years old, it still applies today even, because again, with some of the confusion and application of quality assurance, that's why I wanted to give you the history so you can see how it's sort of evolving, but still similar, same issues continue to pop up. So it talks about quality assurance. And the report talks about the total system of activities. Okay, so when we talk about total system of activities, what does that mean to you on a design build project? Or what would you think? Does it just apply to materials? Yes, no? Materials are pretty much the hard product. How about the processes in site, such as maybe over-the-shoulder reviews? So again, it's more of a philosophy thing that may be required, it may not be required, depending upon how you implement it. So then we get in with a little more evolution, with Asheville getting more involved. You can see they've had their own quality assurance manual going back to the mid-90s. Again, it's trying to give a little bit better clarification, direction, guidance to the implementers out in the field. Okay, as far as the definition, you can see sort of in the blue, it's all those planned and systematic actions necessary. Notice at the bottom of the statement on the slide, the use of the term QA, QC, or QC, QA is discouraged, and the term QA should be used. Okay, so anybody got any thoughts on why we are saying that? No? John, you want to say something?
It's more than QC.
It's what?
It's, you need to look at the whole thing.
Yeah, you need to look, yeah, basically you need to look at the whole thing, because just a quick comments would be like with federal highways, or when we talk government and acronyms, everybody gets going on different terms for acronyms, but in some states their QA means quality acceptance. So as you may have other outside design builders come in, contractors, and they came from that state to here, what do you think you're setting your construction guys up for? Some pretty good misinterpretation, which can lead to what? More RFIs, more NCRs, and more claims, because it also ties back to risk. So again, we're trying to get more of a national level of commonality for the QA term, and then within your own technical proposal and specs, you can work out those kind of details. So again, something to consider as you develop your RFP, RFQs, and maybe eventually roll into your specs. So to highlight again, the term of QCQA, this is just a figure slide we've been using now for like 10, 15 years. And notice, it's not only federal highways, it's AASHTO, ANSI, ASQ, NCHRB, TRB. So again, it's been around 20 plus years, and we continue to still find a lot of confusion. And with design build, again, caution you that if we don't get a handle on it, you're sort of setting yourself up for some higher risk and maybe a little higher frequency failure on some interpretations. Okay, so as far as QA programs, looking at versus materials, this just showing you it can also be used within the design aspect of a project as well as construction. And as far as design, you can see it brings up it's a best practice, it's encouraged, not a formal FHWA requirement per se, but again, over the years, hopefully if you've been involved with 23 CFR 637 for materials and how that has helped improve the quality of your projects and or validate what you're after, same philosophy, just a different process and topic. So it's related to design, and then on the far right is using that same philosophy related to construction.